Welcome to the Patel Perspective Podcast. I'm your host, Harsh Patel. I obtained a bachelor's degree in neuroscience and minors in biology and biochemistry. Through that education, this podcast allows me to deliver proper health, science, and self-improvement information to the people around the world. If you have liked any of my podcast episodes, and if you would like to show support, the only way to do so is by subscribing to my YouTube channel and by following the social media platforms of the guests you have liked. You don't really want to miss out on the highly intellectually stimulating conversations we'll be having in our future episodes. Today's guest is Archana Shaktawat. Archana Shaktawat is a clinical psychologist and an author. She has experience in personality development, relationship counseling, and parenting. She has trained over 10,000 individuals in developing their personalities and has conducted well over 100 mental health sessions using her experience in clinical psychology. We have a great conversation ranging from relationship issues to parenting issues. Expect to learn what a healthy relationship looks like, what a toxic relationship looks like, and what you should be doing on your first date. Expect to learn what are good styles of parenting. So this episode will be an eye-opener for a lot of individuals. And now, my conversation with Archana Shaktawat. Today we have a clinical psychologist here, Archana Shaktawat. Hi, Archana.
Yeah, you won't believe, Harsh, you're the first one who's got my surname right without even me telling you my surname. So, yay!
Yeah, I mean, I'm from an Indian background, so I'm well aware of how to pronounce names. So what's the deal with young people these days? Why do some people say, I can't find love?
I guess the whole sentence itself is a little wrong. When you're looking for love, if you're finding love, you will never find it. It's one of those things. I think people do fall in love. It's just that their idea and the definition of love is a little different today because of the social media influence that we have in our lives, where we think that love has to fit in a certain criteria, and if it doesn't fit in those categories, we think we're still not in love. And maybe when you're very young, say maybe when you're in your 18 to 25 age group, love is generally associated more with infatuations, or you get attracted to somebody, which to an extent is true and also not true for two three reasons. One, it completely depends on your maturity level. The life experiences that you've had, the way you have seen your parents love each other, that's
Right.
how you define love for yourself. So giving an example, that I come from a very loving childhood, wherein I like, parents do have disagreements, but I've never seen my parents fight or get abusive. They would have disagreements, but I always saw that how my father respected my mother's opinion, and how my mother would constantly seek for an approval or for guidance from my father. So that is how I define love. So today, if you ask me what is important for me in love, I would say respect. But maybe if I would have had a little difficult childhood, where I was constantly seeing my parents fight, wherein my mother was constantly, probably she was very submissive in the relationship. She didn't even have a voice, and my father was always dominating, then probably as a woman, then I would surely want, then I would not seek for respect, then I would seek for dominance in the relationship, because I don't want history to get repeated. I don't want to be like my mother, where I don't even have a voice. So next time, when I fall in love, I will always choose somebody who would only listen to me, or where I have an upper hand. So I think the way your childhood has been, the way your parents have had their love life or their relationship or people around you, is how you define love. So love is a very subjective feeling, and probably the harder you look for it, the lesser you will find it. So like any emotion, you got to probably just, like, how sometimes we get angry in a fraction of a second, similarly we can fall in love in a fraction of a second. And I guess probably the definition of love is a little different. So you're in that age group, Harsh. How would you define love? Let me hear it from you.
So let's just say I am. I'll give you two scenarios for people here.
Perfect.
When I was in late high school, early college, my definition was different. Right now, my definition was different. So when I was in late high school, college, early college, my definition was love was basically was based on the person, how the person looked and how attractive they were, and the amount of attention they gave me.
Correct.
Very simple definition. So it was just superficial and how much attention I would receive from the other person. But as I went through a long term relationship with my current girlfriend, my definition of love became very complex. In order to express love and to receive love, first of all, you have to be approaching the best version of yourself. And this is subjective. Like your best version of yourself will be different from your partner's best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
And so I have certain gifts to provide. Like my definition of expressing love is the things that I do for my girlfriend, and that is what I consider it love. But it's also like the feeling side, right? So back in the day, I would say I would fall in love easily, like someone really easily, and then that would make me fall in love easily with the other people. I know this is very, very dumb to say, but that's how the young brain is. But after you have that experience in a long term relationship, you become selective about who you want to love. And so it, for me, love as an emotion is felt from the things that your partner does, how caring they are, what kind of values they bring, what kind of things they believe in, shared goals for the future, and everything. All of those like enhance the love for the other person for me. So it's not based on the looks anymore. It's based on the holistic picture that we have viewed for ourselves in the future. And so that's my definition has drastically changed.
Wow, I guess you have a very evolved definition of love. So I guess probably a round of applause for you.
Thank you.
I guess so many would learn from you. That's so rightly said. When we are in our teens, for us, we are a little self-oriented. Everything is about us
Yeah.
because we are at that age wherein our hormones do play a little bit of a role, our surroundings play a little bit of a role. Currently we have a lot of exposure, so where we feel that it's all about the way we look, but as we age, definition changes. And just to because your podcast is Patel's perspective, so just to give you a perspective into how psychology talks about love, it says that human beings are not monogamous. That means we are never supposed to be with one person all our life. If people hear this, they'll be like, "Yeah, got the
Yay,
right
freedom.
one." It's proved. So actually, the thing is, love is taken in as somebody you think you want to spend the rest of your life, right? That's how we look at love. That okay, fine. Today, if I love somebody of the opposite gender, maybe I'm wanting to spend my entire life. But you have to understand that today, what I look for in a person and the kind of demands that I have, or whatever that I want to be fulfilled, will be very different maybe in my 30s and then in my 40s and then in my 50s, right? But the core that you should always look for in your partner should be their values, because values stay with you for the longest. Giving an example that for some materialistic possessions are a part of the value system, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's completely fine. And for some, maybe personal growth could be a part of their value system. They're constantly wanting to improve, they're constantly wanting to study. So if your values are very different, your chances to stay in that relationship may not be very long. So, what happens with most of us is we go in more for thoughts and beliefs, and we feel that probably I fell in love, say, with somebody because of the way he thought. But thoughts and beliefs change, but not your values. Your values remain the same. So, one of the reasons why today's generation is constantly ending up in not finding true love or not finding the right partners, because they're focusing more on thoughts and beliefs rather than values. So, if you focus more on values as to what is important to you, you will actually have a relationship which will last for a much longer time. So I think probably that is where probably our generation is kind of missing out on, because there's been so much awareness. We are constantly thinking, okay, this is right, that is right. Our beliefs are changing. Some of our belief systems are getting shattered because science is educating us. But our core value will never change. What is important to me today will remain important to me for the rest of my life. Giving an example, that if I'm somebody who holds integrity as a part of my value system, that means I'm very honest to myself and I want to be honest to the world. But if I am with somebody for whom integrity is not important, we will always fight over it. I will always feel like my partner is cheating onto me. But that's not a part of his or her value system. So I think if you match on values, you'll probably have a more lasting relationship, and a relationship where your chances of misunderstandings would be less.
So psychology teaches us that initially attracting a partner, it's all dependent on looks. And so let me just give you a scenario. Like how should the first date actually look like when the date is decided mainly on the attractiveness of the other person? So what should everyone do on their first date? What should be the goal?
Yeah, so the goal should be that what are you actually seeking from in the relationship. So if you're looking in just for another relationship, then maybe it's just another relationship and you'll go with that mindset, right? So it's very important to really understand what is, are you really looking in for a steady relationship, or you're just going in on for another date where you're not really interested in the outcome. So the only way that you can actually truly know a person is by spending quality time, right? And it's got nothing to do with quantity of time, it's quality of time. You can actually know a person in 15 minutes also, if you ask the right questions and if the person is willing to answer it to you. So it's very important that your goal is right, that fine, this is a person I want to meet and I'm looking in for a long lasting, I mean a relationship that means something to me, then probably it will work out. Another thing that you'll have to kind of, it's a pill that we all will have to accept, that our body language communicates far more than our words, which is nearly 55%, and then another 38%, which is by our tone, and only 7% is words. So, yes, the first time when you meet a person, what kind of a body language does he or she have? Is he genuinely interested in every time you talk, is he nodding, is he or she asking you relevant questions? This is where you come to know if the person is genuinely interested, or is the person only talking about himself or herself, not involving you in the conversation. So I guess probably these are some red flags that you'll probably have to keep in mind on your first date. Yeah, there's also a possibility that the person that you meet may not be a very communicative person. He's a little reserved. He or she could have an introverted personality. So again, I want to break a myth. Introverted personalities don't mean somebody who doesn't like to talk. It's just that somebody who likes to talk a lot to selective group of people. So if an introvert opens up with you, so don't feel that a person didn't speak to me, oh, she must have been an introvert. No, it just means that probably he or she was never comfortable with you to open up in front of you. So I guess an ideal date would be that, yeah, you dress up well. That's important because the way you dress up reflects a lot about who you are. You can always wear colors that you associate yourself with. That's always there. You can always do something like that. But focus a lot on communicating. Focus a lot on your tone. Like giving a simple example, that if you ever want to know if somebody, you built a rapport with somebody, is that they will start mirroring your body language. So, giving an example, that if you're sitting like this for a while, and if the other person also ends up sitting like this, that means he's truly interested in you. So, we as human beings, when we get comfortable with somebody, we end up copying their body language, whatever that they are doing. So, you would have seen, like if you get comfortable while walking with somebody, after a while yours and that person's steps will match. You'll go, it's almost like you'll be marching together. You don't do it consciously, it happens subconsciously. It just shows that you're interested in a person. So I guess one green flag would be that, if you're nodding, or if you're sitting or leaning towards one side, does that other person also do a little bit of that? Not completely. If that person does a little bit of that, these are signs that he or she is interested, or he or she is trying to develop a rapport with you. So yeah, this is what an ideal date would look like.
So you gave us a great template for the first date. I understand it won't be the ideal scenario for everyone, but it's definitely like somewhere to start, especially in this day and age where you have phones with us all the time and you can get distracted from a lot of different things in your surroundings. So one of the things like me and my partner have done, is that we would schedule date nights together every week, once a week, and then we would just try to not use our phones at all. And I think that is our definition of quality time. And like
Absolutely.
actually going to a restaurant where we can sit sit and look at each other instead of like side by side. You know what I mean? But like
Absolutely.
that's what I consider like quality time. But yeah,
Mm.
um, I think that's a great place to start, because we can get all caught up on the physical features of the person, and then miss the whole point of going on a date and not ask the right questions. I think that could be one of the biggest mistakes, and also time wasting. Because I always believe that long term relationships are better than short term casual relationships because it just drains you. Long term relationships don't really drain you, it just helps you learn key lessons about long lasting relationships. And short term relationships don't really do that. And especially in your 20s, like I've always, for the longest time, believed that short term relationships are just energy drainers where you can have extra time in terms of career and learning new things. So,
So true. So
let,
I always feel that, short-term relationship is based on a very simple concept, uh, that it's something that you're just looking in for temporary pleasures. And we all know that anything which gives you temporary pleasures are not good for you. It could be sugar, it's chocolate, like anything just that gives you an instant dopamine rush is not good for you. It's not good for the brain. It's not good for your body. So the same thing applies to a relationship also. And since I do a lot of relationship counseling, I use this phrase with all my couples because I've had couples whom I've patched up. They had a tough time being together. They had a toxic relationship. I helped them get back to each other, work on the relationship. But I've also helped couples part ways. So my job is not to make sure I am not somebody who's always a patcher, because I sometimes feel that two individuals are probably at that time they thought they were the best that they could get, But with years, you do realize your values are different, you do have compatibility issues, lot of it, right? And maybe the two of them do not have the energy to work on that relationship, or not even have the willingness to do it. So I've helped them even come out of the relationship, right? And as a psychologist, my job is not to make you be in a relationship because the society demands for it. I work on your mental health as a couple and also individually. So that is, that's what I've also done. I don't know, a lot of people will approve of it, but it's necessary. It's not always to be in a relationship, whether it's working or not working in it. See, sometimes we also feel that if it's lasted for 20 years, maybe, I'm sure it will last even now. That's not the case. Just because it's lasted for 20 years, maybe you didn't have the courage, you didn't have the right guidance. That's why you didn't want to move out of the toxic relationship. Sorry, to come back, so I was just trying to give a little bit of insight on that. I always say, if a relationship is making you bitter, you should get out of it. Only if a relationship is making you better do you stay in it. Because there are a lot of times wherein you suddenly become very vain in a relationship. There is a feeling of insecurity. The minute you become a past tense person, that earlier I used to do that, but now I don't do it, that means the relationship hasn't helped you grow, evolve, transform, or change for that matter. So then I think that relationship is giving you multiple red signs, red flags that you didn't want to see, were not wearing the right specs, or you felt like, no, you know what, so what, there's one red flag, there's still a green flag. Sometimes you work on that criteria also. Yeah.
So what is
And just to
toxic?
add,
Sorry.
sorry.
Go
So
ahead. Go ahead.
I'll just add to your quality time. Sorry, I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about that. So sometimes people think that quality time is primarily associated with talking. And I just mentioned that 55% of our communication is through our body language. So if you enjoy each other's company, just holding hands and not uttering a word, also, I think that's also quality time. It's not necessary you have to always talk, and only then it is quality time. If you're sitting in the same room right next to each other, holding hands, and you've not uttered a word, I think that's also quality time. So it's not always about communicating or looking into each other's eyes and, doing all of that. Because maybe at your age, it sounds really nice and beautiful. But maybe today I'm 39 and I don't want to look into my partner's face and tell him, wow, you're still so handsome. I don't want to do that. I just want to hold hands and be on the same sofa. So that's also quality time. The definition changes. Sorry, you were asking me something.
No, that was a great thing to point out, because yes, I look at quality time different right now, just how you described it, because I'm young, but maybe in like 20 years it will be different. But
Yeah.
my question was, what is the definition of toxic relationship from a psychology perspective and in a general
Okay.
relationship counseling perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the prime things that gets into a relationship fitting into a toxic quotient would be the day you stop talking, and not just verbally, but also there is an there is a communication gap in all aspects. Giving an example that, I'll just use a Hindi phrase here for some of our audience, where parents would say, रहने दो, उनको समझा के कोई फायदा नहीं, just forget about it, he will not understand, or he will say, there's no point talking to you. These are big red flags, where your body is saying, I don't want to talk to you, your tone is saying you don't exist, and words obviously are not coming out. So this is a very big lacuna, this is a very big sign. And people, it's like that elephant in the room. People think that toxic is only when the person is hitting you, or when there is abusive language happening. The fact that there is nothing happening, there is no communication, that's a very big red flag. So that's when it goes into a toxic relationship. It could also Toxic relationships are also associated with the fact that you are waiting not to be with your partner. You're looking for ways and means to avoid your partner. Giving an example, you suddenly want, you're more comfortable when he or she is not in the house. The presence of the person kind of makes you a little uncomfortable. And the third way to judge is if you are blaming each other constantly for every little thing that happens in your life, or every little thing happens in your partner's life. Giving an example, if I start losing hair and I say it's only because of my partner, that's a very big that's exactly when it becomes toxic, because you don't want to take responsibility of anything and everything. Then you're just looking in for ways to vent out your frustration. So a blame mindset, when there is a lacuna of communication, then this is when it fits into a toxic category relationship. And these are some things that people sometimes don't even consider. They consider toxic association is more with he's hitting you or he gets violent with you. That's not toxic, that's abusive, right? So
Yeah,
so if it is getting toxic, please don't reach to the abusive level. Take actions at the toxic level.
that's a very, very important thing to point out, because being so young, you were maybe have, as you said, having the wrong specs on because you just fell in love. And in the first 6 months of your relationships, you're going to be blindsided a lot because you're just going to look at the other person's good features. And then when when all the hormones like stabilize after 1 or 2 years of the relationship, then you start to question everything about the other person. And you also question everything about yourself too. So my follow-up question is the toxic behavior unconscious or subconscious? And is this can this happen to both of the partners at the same time and still not be aware of it?
Absolutely. So again, so when it comes to actions, initially they are at a conscious level. But when it becomes a part of your behavior, right, then it is at a subconscious level. Then it's almost like, it's like when the glass falls down, you will get angry. It becomes a part of your behavior. But the first time when it fell, and you got angry, that was consciously, you were taking actions. So that is why I say that it's much easier to take care of a relationship if you understand these red flags at an initial level of your relationship till it's at a conscious level, wherein a person consciously got angry, he noticed something that you did, or you noticed something that he did, or she did, and that was not appropriate, and you got angry, or you became little bitter and you blamed him. But when it becomes a part of your behavior, then it gets very difficult for you to change, because then you got to take efforts, conscious efforts to, kind of unlearn and then relearn. You got to make that effort. So initially itself, if you realize that, the two of you are blaming each other, your communication has stopped, you have given up, things like that, you don't want to get into that. You're like, my partner is like this only, I can't do anything, or just forget about it. When your body language goes into, these formats where you're blocking the partner in all aspects, then if at that stage you can realize that, maybe we are going wrong somewhere, or maybe I am going wrong somewhere, then it's the right stage. And the other question that you'd asked me, so just to kind of sum up, initially everything happens at a conscious level. Behaviors are more at a subconscious level. So if you keep repeating the task, it becomes a part of it. It's a pattern that you build up, and then it's subconsciously. And second question that you asked me, that can both of them do it? Absolutely. The problem with positivity and negativity, both pros and cons. Positivity is contagious and so is negativity. So you would notice that if you are working in a very negative environment where people are constantly speaking ill of a boss, or if people are constantly bitching and gossiping, you would also end up picking up the same things. That's how contagious negativity is. And the same thing applies with happiness. If I smile, you are going to smile back, right? That's how it is. So emotions are contagious, and this is why you would see that every time there's an accident and one person is shouting, then you suddenly have three four more people joining him, then screaming and shouting. They have nothing to lose, but that is how contagious emotions are. So there is a strong possibility that if your partner has had a negative mindset or a blame mindset, like a blame mindset is a negative mindset, you would also pick up the same things, because in your defense you will also end up blaming him or her. Giving an example, that if I had a fight with my partner, where he's saying you don't do this, I'd be like, shut up, but even you don't do this, right? And then we are like, see, you didn't do this, and that's why I became like this, and you didn't do this, that's why I became like that. So yeah, I mean, both of them can become like that. That's the beauty of it. So, and that's the demerit of it. The beauty is, if both of you are happy, you'll have a beautiful relationship. And if both of you are upset and negative, then you will have that. But then, okay, just a disclaimer for all those who are watching us and who will watch us. A healthy relationship does not mean, yay, super, wow. It doesn't work like that. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have days where you're going to fight. You're going to have days where you're going to say, oh my God, what an idiot I am. I mean, how did I fall in love with this person? You will have all of this. But that is exactly how life is. It's never a straight line. If it's a straight line, means you're dead. Your heartbeat has to go up and down. Music goes up and down. Your voice goes up and down. So everything has to be lived in that aspect. You cannot have beautiful days every day. So don't believe in that story.
So on the flip side, what's the healthy relationship?
So a healthy relationship is that's a nice question. So a healthy relationship is where you're going to have a mix of everything, wherein when if you've had good days, you're going to be happy. You may have fights, and the fights are not going to be based on a character, but the fights should be based on a certain action that took place. Giving an example, that supposedly I am with my partner, we go out for a party, and supposedly he has two extra drinks. He's not supposed to have it, so I tell him that there wasn't a need. Why did you do it? But if it's an unhealthy relationship, I would say, oh my God, I'm tired. This is the reason I don't like to go out with you. You always get drunk. You have no control over it. I go into character assassination. That's when it's becoming unhealthy. If the fights are more based on actions that has taken place immediately, and don't go into character assassination, or don't go into you've always been like that and think, you don't take in past references and come to that aspect, then it's a healthy relationship. A relationship where you're spending quality time with each other, a relationship where your sexual life has to be very healthy. So one of the ways that people stop communicating is wherein they stop having a healthy sexual life. So you got to have healthy sexual physical compatibility, and sexual compatibility, that's very important in a healthy relationship. You're somebody where you want to do something for your partner, not because you want him or her to reciprocate. You just felt like doing it, right? You're constantly appreciating your partner. Not by constantly, I don't mean you get up in the morning and say, wow, you're so beautiful. You sleep and you say, wow, you're so beautiful. But wherever you think there was a need to appreciate. So there are words of affirmation, there's physical touch, there's sexual relationship is healthy. You spend quality time, but then there are also disagreements. So that's how it goes. That's how your relationship is going to be.
Hey, I'll ask you a very tough question. I have been battling with this since when I started dating and since I've been in this dating game. What is a healthy sex life look like in a long-term relationship?
Okay. So again, it is not the frequency of it. Okay,
Hmm.
the frequency sometimes may not matter in a healthy life. So giving an example that in psychology, I mean, we were now not in psychology. That's how science is. Um, the love hormone is oxytocin.
Yes.
Right, so every time you're in love, oxytocin comes in. That's how you blush. There's a natural smile, and so after a certain age, see, I'm not sure on the exact age, but especially during menopause, the oxytocin production reduces. Menopause, menopause, both. So that's somewhere around your late 40s and your mid 40s, wherein the production reduces, right? So, if you feel that only sex is what is going to keep your relationship active and healthy, then you're thoroughly mistaken. Maybe in your 20, you're constantly craving in for sex, and that's where you get all those pleasures of life, oxytocin, all of that. So, a healthy sex life would be that you're craving for it. You want to, you really take out time for it. You're enjoying each other's. Company before and after. It shouldn't just be an activity you do it and you get out of it. Before that, you're enjoying each other, and after that, you're enjoying each other's company. So that's healthy sex life. But after a certain age, especially when you're in your mid 40s and late 40s, maybe your frequency would reduce. It may not happen every day, but whenever it does, it should be extremely pleasurable. It's again something that you look forward to. It is something that is not happening, so you make an effort to build your sexual compatibility all over again. So yeah, I mean that would go into a healthy sex life where one, you don't focus on the frequency, that is the number of times you're doing it, but whenever you do it, there is something that you wanted to do it's not just an activity, it's something that you look forward to, you enjoy it, there's a before and after. Second is, don't feel that that's the only way you can keep the relationship alive, because maybe you have great sex life, but after that there's nothing between you, right? Then it was purely sexual, that then it is purely sexual and your relationship would not last. Like like they say, that there's never one ingredient which adds to flavor. It is a combination of ingredients and spices is what enhances the flavor, right? So supposedly, in India, we are somebody who love our spices, and that is why our food tastes so yummy, because we use a mix of spices, right? We also have a spice box which has so many containers. You would know it. There's haldi, there's sugar, there's coriander powder, there's cinnamon, cardamom. All of this is what contributes into great flavor. So physical compatibility is not the only thing. It's an important flavor, but not the only thing. So if you enjoy it, and you know what, you should also talk about your sex life. So I know a lot of people who don't even talk about their sex life to each other. I mean, don't go around and tell the world about your life, but I mean to each other. You got to tell your partner what do you enjoy in it, and what you would want him or her to do the next time. You got to talk about it, as to you did something differently, and that really added value to the whole experience. Compliment him or her, and talk about it. So I mean, it just gets better. But again, there is no recipe that's going to give you the best results.
So, as Indians, I was never taught to consider sexual compatibility. So why is there a lot of stigma around craving sex, the need for sex, and sexual compatibility in our culture? You think?
So I think in India, we are known not to talk about, not to talk about the elephant in the room. We are 1.4 billion. That means something somewhere somebody is doing very
Something.
happily.
Yep.
So probably 10, 15 years back or since the beginning of 2000, sex was not even said. They would say dot, 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 which meant sex.
Yeah.
So it wasn't talked about, so it is actually surprising. I think one of the reasons why we do not really talk much about it again has to do with a lot of the mentality that we have around washrooms and toilets. We think that these, like, how in India we could have washrooms outside the house, or we wouldn't even have washrooms, we wouldn't even have a toilet in the house. So, and this probably still exists in some villages. Similarly, I think sex was also just considered to be an activity, and people thought, to be very honest, even I don't know why is that, why in India they never really talked about it. But now I think things are changing. I
Yeah.
think now India, I'm not saying that India is becoming the sex capital of the world, but yes, yes, we are. I think now we've already beaten China in terms of, so we currently have the highest population in the world. So yes, I think we are now talking about sex more from a pleasure perspective. Earlier, it was more associated with a reproduction process, like you had sex only to have kids. Now with the relation, because now that I'm doing a lot of couples, now they're open about talking their sexual life, wherein they say that, they enjoy it, things like that. So now things are changing, but again, we have a long way. And what was disheartening is, Harsh, that probably because you went to US at a very young age, but probably if you had at least done your 12th here and then gone in for college, you would have probably seen, and now that I see a lot of college students, is that, in I think in ninth standard or in 10th standard in India, we would have a chapter about reproductive organs in biology, and that is considered to be a part of our sex education.
Interesting.
Right, so and where you are at that naive age of 13 and 14, where you're trying, one is you're so shy to see it, right? Because we are not taught that we got to respect our body or understand our body, and our body is not just the mind and the heart, but also um our reproductive organs, right? So it was just a chapter we had to go through, give an exam, and that's it. But now efforts are being made where schools, at least schools, are trying to get in a third party. And I always feel that sex education may not come from the parents sometimes, because our parents are yet not so comfortable or so evolved to explain what is the process of it, what's masturbation, or things like that. So now I guess third, like a neutral bodies are being appointed. They are now, most of the schools in India have a psychologist or a counselor on board, where children can go up to them, share some of their concerns. So I think things are changing, but we still have a long way when it comes to talking about sex, because sex is just taken in as the intercourse aspect. But sex education means understanding woman as a sex, understanding man as a sex, as in the the gender that we play. So, but yeah, things are changing, but I think we still have a long way to go. How are things
So,
there in states? Like, do you feel that probably if you had stayed back in India, you would have been a shy guy who would get nervous talking to a woman? Can you even imagine that? Because
so
Indian boys
I,
can't.
well, my journey is kind of weird because I came here in 2010, and I had I had no attention from any girls like up until college. It was also because I was lacking on personality, communication, but also like physical side. Like I'm not tall, but I was also like big at the time. I was like 225 pounds
Okay.
and I lost weight. I lost like 65 pounds. And so
Wow.
I started to get into personality development and stuff, and then I has had attention from girls. So I never had initially attention from girls. And so compounded that with lack of sex education. I never learned about the reproductive system until I took an anatomy class 2 years back, or not even two, 1 year back. At the age of 22, I learned about the reproductive system. My
Hmm.
biology course did not teach me the reproductive system. For some reason, the semester that I took biology two, like the second part of biology, we just did like plants and microorganisms and stuff, and we did not cover reproductive system. It was very stupid. But biologically speaking, I learned reproductive system very recently, and so I had to rely on porn a lot about learning
Yeah,
the female
correct.
reproductive system and figuring out the female sex drive, and that's why I regret very much that. And also, I grew up fatherless. I'm raised by a single mom, so
Oh, wow.
the reason why I'm asking you this question, like sexual compatibility and um, the role of sex in a relationship, is because my exposure was mainly due to internet, porn, and just internet in general, and not like real science and personal experience. So that's why I was asking. So that was my
No,
experience.
no, but that, I mean, it is, it's a very valid question. And now that you have mentioned porn, so to all those who are going to watch us eventually, porn is acting. It is performed, right?
Yes.
So don't think that sex is what you see. Like, how in movies we say, like a typical Indian movie wherein, when you fall in love, music starts playing. It doesn't happen like that in real life. We want to believe it does, and how I wish, we would fall in love like that. But it doesn't. Similarly, what you see, the sex that you see in a porn movie or a clipping or whatever that is, that's not reality. It's acting. And remember, acting will always be exaggerated, right? In reality, maybe I know how to dance, but if I was to dance on a stage, my performance is very different. But if I had to dance in a pub, the only thing that I would do is move my head. But if I had to do that on stage, I would move my head to a different level altogether, right? So a performance is very different from a reality. And that's exactly why people think that if it's not happening this way, maybe we are doing it wrong. Yeah, or if you're not trying positions, maybe we are doing it wrong. I'm not saying that you should not experiment. I just said that you should talk about it. You must try and keep your sex life as interesting as possible. But in India, maybe some couples don't do it that way. But then that doesn't mean they don't have a good sex life. In India, Indian women may not be very comfortable with positions, and some maybe. But that doesn't mean that they have a bad sex life, right? So I think the only thing that you will have to understand about sex is that there are only two species, only two mammals that for whom sex is pleasurable. One are humans and the others are dolphins, right? And the sooner you make it a pleasurable activity and not a performance, the better it's going to be, right? You have to understand that sex is also something that gets you closer to your partner. Because if you see, the only relationship that becomes very important for us, in spite of not being a blood relationship, is a relationship that we have with our partner. And one of the primary reasons is because we are involved sexually in it. Sex is also a language, see, how I feel for my mother, obviously it's very important, but how I feel for my partner, I mean, once I get married, the whole equation changes, right? In spite of this person not being anywhere related to my blood, like dur dur tak koi khoon ka nata nahi hai, but still that person becomes so important. That's primarily because of the sexual relationship. So you got to hold that important, talk about it. So I once had a friend who had confessed this to me. When he said that, he got married at a very young age, as in young was 23. And he said, my wife was 2 years younger to me. And in India, people do get married quite early, right? So he said that, on our first night, he said, uh, and this I'm talking good 25 years, 20 plus years back, right? So he said that I didn't know what I had to do. So the only thing that I had seen in movies, wherein the girl would take a glass of milk, and how the lights would fade away and then something would happen, right? So he said, that's all he knew. And he said, I didn't know who to ask because my friends were not married. And they also were just telling, kuch nahi, sab ho jayega apne aap, why are you so worried? It's so natural, because they also had no idea. He couldn't speak to his father. He couldn't speak to his mother. He said that for almost a week, we didn't know what we were doing. We would just hold hands and we were like, we are friends. So then he said that eventually, and then he said, we just did something and we were happy, so we continued doing it.
Yeah.
So when he was sharing it, he said that, so now when my daughter gets married, I don't want her to go through a phase of confusion or trial and error, misses, because it should not be that way, right? So he said, I really would want my wife to tell my daughters about it, and then eventually I would also speak to them. So I think parents must educate their children about this. I know it can be a very difficult topic to talk. So
Hmm.
if you can't do it, maybe use a channel, but educate your children about it.
Children. Yeah. I think that's what many people lack, who question all the questions they have about sex and sexual compatibility. I always had questions about it because it's also funny that when you're young and when you have zero sexual experience, and when you have friends who don't have sexual experience, they put sex on a pedestal, so much so that you feel that sex is like the best thing ever. Like it'll solve all of your problems. It's completely magical. And then when you start being sexually active, you realize that it's not magical, but it's like it's a part
It's
of a relationship.
pleasurable.
It's
Yeah.
pleasurable.
It's pleasurable, yes, of
Yes.
course.
It's a healthy
But then it's
pleasure.
not magical.
Yes. It's like a healthy pleasure. Like pleasure from porn feels a lot different than pleasure from sex.
Absolutely.
Maybe pleasure from porn feels better because of the hyperstimulating nature of porn, but it's like eating junk food versus healthy food. Healthy food can still be delicious, but junk food can be delicious and hyper palatable. And the nature of that is you just want more, and that is porn. I think from sex, this is a great like distinction that I have created over the months or over the years, where sex is like a healthy pleasure, where you're satisfied up until you do it at a certain time, or you have quality time and quality sex, but porn, you're never satisfied.
Correct. You always want more of it.
Yeah. And it's
And I
like
think one thing that probably these cheap dopamine things give you is they add to your impulses.
yes,
And the more impulsive you become as a human being, the more you're disconnecting from being a human being.
Right.
So, everybody knows Sadhguru. So, I had recently attended one of his workshops called Inner Engineering, which is a quite talked about workshop.
Yes.
So, the question was primarily this: what is the difference between an animal and a human being? So, we all gave examples that they can't talk, we can, we communicate, they can't, or we have emotions, they don't have. So obviously he kind of took in everybody's perspectives, and then he said the basic difference is that we have self control and self awareness, which animals lack. We have the ability to look inside us, they can't, and we have the ability to control our impulses. And that's why, probably when I heard him, and is why I kind of now use this in my seminars, that every time you lose control over yourself or give in to your impulse, you're getting closer to your animal instincts.
Yes.
Then, dare if you call anybody an animal because you yourself are being one. So I think
Exactly.
porn makes you very impulsive, and you would notice that every time you watch porn, after that again you feel a little exhausted. You don't get up with that feeling of wow, I watched porn. But when you are, but after a sexual relationship, the feeling is very superlative if you've had great sex. Yeah. You can't really, it's that ineffable feeling. You can't really put a word to it. It's something like that.
Definitely. What is the role of parents in your life? Switching some gears.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we were talking too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was worth the time. I would like to take a quick break and introduce you to my services. My name is Harsh Patel, and I graduated with a neuroscience degree with a focus on food addiction research. I have also lost 65 pounds throughout this time, and I consistently maintain that weight with evidence-based approaches that I learned from my undergraduate degree and my personal experiences. My personal experiences have given me valuable skills to not only transform my own life, but transform your life if you are struggling with binge eating disorder. It's not your diet, it's not your lifestyle. If you want to achieve the transformation you have always desired, then you have to get rid of binge eating disorder. I remember the days when I would eat lower calories during the week and then extremely binge eat on the weekends. I would drink, eat high processed foods, desserts, and that inhibited me from achieving my ultimate transformation. Sounds familiar? If you're struggling with this same issue, I am willing to take you from your sad state of binge eating disorder to a healthy state where you're no longer having extreme cravings for foods and you are ultimately achieving the result of extreme weight loss, because losing weight and loving your body is the ultimate goal of my coaching program. Let me take care of your problem. Let me grab your hand and take you to your future self. All links down in the description. And thus far, if you have been watching this episode, I greatly appreciate your attention in today's world. I cannot thank you enough for the support you are giving me on my YouTube channel and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So, I've had one of the most amazing childhoods also because I've had wonderful parents. I come from a very progressive family, and I think probably because my dad was in the forces in the Indian Army, he retired as a colonel, and I got amazing opportunities. They were very progressive because that's how the environment was. I come from a Rajput family where, I have I don't have a brother, which again is questionable in India. We are just two sisters. So, yet my parents did not have a problem with that. So, they've always supported my decisions. So, I think probably your childhood makes you and breaks you. Psychology says that, human experiences have also said that, right? So, a great childhood is what I'm not saying will always result in a wonderful individual, but it is one of the contributing factors. So, my equation with parents has been uh, very. If I really had to give it three words, I would say that they are very understanding. They always respect my decisions, and yet I have a little bit of an unsaid respect for them, which I don't always touch their feet, but I would always seek their validation before I take in a decision. By validation, I don't mean that they have to say yes or no, but by that I mean that I like to seek their advice and approval before I do something. Though I know they will never question it, but I always like it. Like, so, there are times wherein if I'm dressed for an occasion, I would want to go up to my mother and, show it to her and would want her to say, "You're looking good." Right? And in case if I feel like, she's not really approved of it, I don't mind changing also. I don't go like, "Mama, you never like what I wear. I'm so tired." I don't do that also. So I have a wonderful equation with my parents. So yeah, touch wood.
Yeah. So how is having a proper relationship with parents, is it self work or is it due to parents? Is it, I want to make this question worded better, because is this something that your parents force you to become, like having a good relationship with them, or is it something that you continuously work at, or is it both?
Yeah, so actually, at those initial ages, say maybe till you're about 7 or 8, I think the effort has to go more from the parents' side, right? Then it may be equal in your teens until you're about 25, 26. And after a while, once they start aging, then you have to make that effort, which we as kids and children generally forget.
Yeah.
Right? I know we're all selfish beings, but it's a cycle. What goes around comes around, something like that. So in those initial years, parenting, the reason why parenting is considered to be so difficult is because it doesn't come with a book. There is no manual for it. Though people have tried to write, things, say, this is how you do good parenting and bad parenting. Let me tell you, no psychologist has ever said that there is a right way to parenting. Psychology, I mean, there is a concept of positive parenting, which is an extension to positive psychology, which focuses on being real parents, right? Which means that you are also a human being, and so is your child is also an individual. So a lot of parents feel that if they are constantly guarding, if they are constantly preparing the child, doing things for them, making them think, or feeding into them that you're going to grow up and become a doctor or a scientist or an engineer, things like that. That's good parenting. No, it is not. The fact that
Thank you.
you feel that right, so that's it doesn't go into good parenting. It goes into parenting of dominance. It goes into parenting of where you want to have control over your child. So the
Exactly.
minute you exhibit control, then the relationship will never be healthy. Because somebody, see, when there is control, one will always be overpowering and the other one has to step down. This is not an equal relationship. It's obviously there. I mean, you're on a seesaw where one is on the top and you're at the bottom. A relationship can only do well when both are equally important, right? And these parents have to understand. They start thinking that it's almost like they are a mini version of me and I will make them do what I could not do in life. So, I know a lot of parents, who say things like that, I wanted to become a doctor, but I couldn't. So I will make my daughter or my son a doctor. Maybe my child doesn't want to become a doctor. Right? So
Yeah.
that is, you want to be realistic parents that your child is going to have his or her liking. What you like, the child may like or may not like.
Yeah.
You wanted to say something in between. So let me hear that and then I'll add a little on parenting.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just share like my views on like what kind of parenting I have received. I have
Yeah.
definitely received percentage of my life in overparenting, like more overparenting than normal parenting, I believe. because they always pushed me to become doctors. Not even like my parent, like my mom, but like other family members too. Like they just wanted, if I wasn't a doctor, I'm a failure. That's the only mentality. Even in a free country like United States, I was forced to believe that I will be a doctor, and it kind of wasted my time a little bit.
Yeah.
Because after high school, I had to decide if I wanted to be a pre-med or a pre-PA or a pre-farm or anything else. I had to become a pre-med because my career was already decided uh, by family and by my parent. And so I wasted like probably 2-3 years overthinking that if this is right for me or not. And the only reason I chose the PA route is because it was a faster route, and I also had the desire of learning science and helping other people through biological mechanisms and everything. So, but I was definitely pushed like my entire life to be a doctor.
Yeah. And I know how difficult that could be, because I love that phrase that you use, that I felt I was a failure.
Yeah,
And we as adults can't handle failures. Imagine that young child, maybe in the teens or 17, he's not experienced failure, but he is made to feel like a failure. I mean, imagine the kind of self-esteem issues that child would go through. Failing is a verb, but failure is an adjective or noun. Sometimes it
right.
almost becomes like your identity. I failed, it was an event, but I'm a failure. I mean, these are such strong words, because I recently had a particular session with with the parents, wherein sometimes what happens is love blinds you. Love or any emotion which is strong has the ability of blinding you. It's not just love, it could be anger, it could be happiness also sometimes. It could be jealousy and things like that, right? So because parents are so much in love, that's what they think, it becomes control and possession and a possessive nature. Ideally, it is that they feel that whatever that they are doing for the child is right. Yes, from their perspective, 100% correct, but not from the child's perspective.
No.
One of the simplest way to explain this, maybe to you and to those who will listen to us, write six. So you imagine you're writing six on the floor, and you're sitting on one side and the other person is sitting on the other side. You will see it as six, but that person will see nine. Neither are you wrong, neither is he. It's all about perspective. It's all about being in that seat. So maybe you as a parent see it's a six. Oh my God, my child has just got six. But the child knows his or her ability, and for him, that six is like getting a nine, because he thought he'll fail. But he still managed to get a 6 out of 10. So I think parents in that defense that I love my child is why I don't want him to fail. And by making the child do all these things, they make him or her feel like a failure. So with this, that couple that I was telling you, who had come for counseling, the same thing happened, wherein the parents were trying to do everything good for the child, but the child wasn't ready for that good, because he wasn't able to match it up. And sometimes parents see good on the basis of what other children are doing. Right? And I know it can be very difficult sometimes when we have a deformity in our body, we don't accept a deformity in our own body. So I can understand that it can be difficult to accept that in your child, but you will have to do that. Otherwise, you are going to end up spoiling your child's life for a very for a big tenure or a big part of their life. So don't
Yeah.
do that.
I think Indian parents always have this thought of oh, there's always like this Sharmaji's kid who is perfectly
Yeah.
settled.
So Sharma ji, it sounds really modern. I like to say Sharma ji ka beta tumse first aa gaya. I like to say the word beta. Yeah, so true.
Yeah. So like always like, oh, look at this guy. This guy's in medical school already, and like, see, I'll tell you a little background on me too. After I graduated college last year, I had to apply to grad school, but I didn't get accepted the first time around. So then you have to take another year off. So that 1 year became 2 years. I still didn't get accepted, and so here and there, like my parent would be like, "Oh, that person went and got accepted into med school like right after graduation. By the time you get out as a PA, he will get out as a doctor. So what's the difference? You could have entered med school after college. Like you wouldn't have wasted so like these comparisons
Yeah, I know.
like this make me feel like a failure, but I've gotten it so many times that I'm resistant to it now. Like I don't care anymore. Like it's just I had this monk on a podcast episode, and he said whenever anyone uh, gives you criticism, if it's negative or positive, you think that they're just sounds. They're just sounds that you cannot understand. It's like a frog climbing up a tree, and the other people are making fun of the frog, saying you'll never get up the top, and they're just all sounds. And so, I mean, I don't care if it's my parent, because sometimes if I get this negative criticism frequently, like I'll have to treat it as like, oh, it's just sounds, because like it requires, I don't know, it's just it requires so much patience when you're going through this, because the acceptance rate for medical school and PA school is just 5% in the United States. I don't know about India, but it's
Oh,
very low
same
compared
as in
to,
India, but now
yeah.
we do have private medical colleges. So if you have the money, you can pay and get a seat. But then again, it goes into crores. Not every parent can afford it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that's,
just to add to your point, Harsh, is
yes.
Indian parents understand the concept of negative reinforcements, if that's how I really want to put it, wherein they feel that if they make you feel terrible about yourself, you're
Yeah.
one day going to be like diamond and you're going to shine. Okay, now, one, they have not taught you resilience, so they can't expect, because it's only if they teach you will you learn, right? So it doesn't work like that. And what parents miss out on is positive reinforcements. And parents, maybe their parents didn't do it,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that you have to do that to your child as well. Learn to appreciate the good in your child. Very rarely do I have parents tell me that this is good in my child. They are constantly saying he doesn't do this, she doesn't do that, not. There's a whole list. It's almost like the child doesn't do anything right as per them, right? And you have to learn to start seeing the good in your child. Start developing mental resilience, and the only way to develop resilience in your child is when you see something good. You got to appreciate all the efforts he or she has been making. See, efforts are never appreciated. We always feel that we got to appreciate the end result. If you don't enjoy the journey, there is no surety that you will enjoy the destination. Right? If you don't enjoy gymming, if you don't enjoy the whole workout session or enjoy yoga, I can assure you, you will not even enjoy losing weight or your abs, right? Because then you don't enjoy the process. Simple, it's as simple as that, right? So your
Yeah.
parents need to teach this, and parents need to start using positive reinforcements. Appreciate for everything that the child has done. Don't go into what the child has not done, because see, either the child will become rebellious or the child will become submissive. He will learn on giving up, or he will learn to give up on you. Now
Right.
you decide how do you want, because neither of the ways are good, right? So like you said, you gave up on your mother, that she's never going to motivate you. I got to look for motivation outside, right? This particular parent that I was talking in, wherein the child has given up. I'm not going to do anything, mommy, papa, you only decide. It's almost like he said, I am in any case a failure, so why should I make the effort? So, what kind of individuals are you creating? Because, see, you have to understand that parents are patterns. You don't need to teach anything to the child learns from you. Right. So, a lot of parents would say that, our child has suddenly become abusive. And then, I would
Yeah.
always ask them that I'm sure somewhere in the house he's picking it up. It's not always the school. It's somewhere in the house, and this had happened with one of my with one of the couples, wherein the child was very young. I'm not a child psychologist, so the child was very young. So she was a friend who just called me that my son is behaving like this. So then I told her, please find out, or try and kind of now be a little open, keep your ears peeled, sorry, your ears and eyes peeled, that is anybody in the family being abusive? And then she kind of observed for a few days, and she realized that her father in law would abuse the driver like this, going on to real cheap language. And that's how the child had picked up two, three words from. It was all,
Yeah.
not that the father in law wanted the child to pick it up, it was done in complete negligence. They didn't even know it was happening, but it was happening. So you got to set the pattern right when it comes to your children.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that, because I feel like this might be not the best advice, but like whenever I do something in my life right now, I feel like I I have this mentality of someone is watching me, so I better have my act straight.
Correct.
Um, it's not even a person, but it's also like a higher power. Like someone is watching me. I have to have my act right, and so I think that has helped me a little bit every day. Not like I'm not the best yet, but like I feel like I'll be better in 5, 10 years, because when you have someone watching you, you kind of direct your behavior in a positive way. So, but coming back to positive reinforcement, like a lot of, if parents watch this, they might not know what we were talking about, because I learned about this study recently where these kids were divided into two groups, and both groups had two sets of had a set of tests back to back, but one group received a effort based praise. They were told that you are a hard worker, you work really hard. The other group received um, char- uh, characteristic based praise, like saying you are intelligent, you're smart. The group that performed, the group that consistently performed better was the one that received the effort based praise.
Action based.
Yes.
So true. So I'll probably explain what is positive parenting, because eventually when people would watch our podcast, parents would want to know what is positive parenting. So again, there is no right or wrong way of parenting. There is your way of parenting.
Mhm.
Right. So positive parenting doesn't mean you gotta be happy all the time in front of your kids, because this is also a problem, because a lot of children who only seen the happy side of life, when they actually, because life is not always going to throw roses to you, there are going to be a bed of nails and everything possible. They don't know how to handle it, they don't even know how to process it. But they are like, oh my god, like, why is my partner crying? Because I never saw my mother crying, so I don't know, maybe I have an ugly relationship, right? So you got to be very realistic with your children. So one of the best ways, two, three tips I want to give to the parents out there. Not that I am a child psychologist, but I'm telling you from the parenting quotient, okay? Not from from the child psychology perspective. So one of the best ways to work towards positive parenting is, number one is, you have to make the child understand every emotion, and also the reason why a child is probably behaving in a certain fashion. Giving an example, there are a lot of mothers, when the child is angry, they say, no, don't get angry, you're a bad boy, bad girl, why are you getting angry? This is so much of negativity that you're passing on. It's almost like you're telling the child that tomorrow, if anybody boxes him, ill treats him, he's not supposed to get angry. Anger is an emotion which is giving some sort of a purpose, it has a reason why you're getting angry. So you got to make the child understand that every emotion is important, right? Uh, the more you increase his vocabulary on emotions, the better the child will be at processing that emotion. Anger, guilt, hurt, jealousy. These are emotions that are never even spoken about. Like, people don't even talk about guilt. No, guilt is such a common emotion, or jealousy, right? Unless you educate the child what is jealousy, he will never understand what is competition. He'll always be jealous around everything. You got to explain that. So, the best way to proceed towards positive parenting is, one is, understand why a child is behaving in a certain fashion, and then even try to explain him in the simplest possible way that you can. And maybe you won't be able to do it today. A year later, you can, right? You'll always get better at it. It's only when you know about it, you'll get better. Second is, start developing the ability of decision making in your child, which a lot of parents don't do, because they feel he's a child, she's a child, बच्चों को क्या पता, इसको क्या पता? No, they are individuals. Yeah, they are small individuals, but they are individuals.
Yeah.
You can't question that. So, one of the best ways to develop this ability is by giving them alternatives or giving them choices. So every time you give them a choice, they feel like they've taken a decision. They feel more powerful about it, and every time you feel responsible towards the decision, you'll do it with better dedication. Right. So giving an example, that if you want a child to do something, you always give them two options. Are you going to play right now, or do you want to finish homework and then go play? So then the child chooses, and then he'll feel, okay, fine, it was my decision, so I got to live up to it. It happens with all of us, like, even when the boss tells us that I will do this or that, and we'll choose it, and then we feel, see, I got the chance to choose it, I'm going to do it better. It's a natural feeling, that everybody does. So develop that. You can also give them alternatives, that do this right now and do that later on. So you are kind of involved in decision making, but you're still helping them build their ability, right? And one more way that you should work towards positive parenting is, develop the ability, like the example that you give, start appreciating and validating your child. Because we as human beings, how much ever we try, we are looking in for validations. And imagine, if that kind of validation the child gets from his or her parents, he would never fall in love with the wrong person. Because a lot of time, love is very strongly associated with validations. We end up in unhealthy relationships only because it began with the partner validated something about it, which the others did not. So just by these 2-3 ways, though there is a long list, but just to sum it up, one would be helping a child with better emotional awareness and improve their vocabulary around it. Life is not just happiness and sadness. There's more to emotion. So make them understand that. Develop decision making by, giving them choices, helping them, giving them alternatives. And last would be helping them, give them the validation that they require. You'll actually boost their self-esteem and confidence. So I guess there'll be a holistic development of the child. So these are some ways. Hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, tough, but yeah.
Yeah.
Three is always an easy way to handle.
Yeah. So like bringing like entire picture together, the things we talked about, I have learned that attachment styles with your parents determine the attachment styles with your partners.
Absolutely. Bang on. So I give you full marks.
Okay.
You are successful with this.
Thank you. So I want you, if we can go into that for a little bit. I know we can.
Absolutely.
This is cutting edge on time, but a little bit into that would like drive home the entire picture.
Absolutely. So, see, the kind of partner that we end up with would always. So, I mean, now it's a little different, but just saying that, I would end up with a partner who's very similar to my father. And if I had a brother, he would end up with somebody who's very similar to his or her mother, sorry, his mother. And now it's also for anybody, I mean, not gender wise. I'm saying that. So the kind of relationship you have with your parents, you will constantly, if it's missing in it, you would want to kind of achieve that in your partner. Giving an example, that if you had a very protective upbringing, right, very protective, your parents didn't let you do anything, so your decision making abilities were never developed. So one is, you will never go in for a love marriage. You would always choose a partner that your parents decide for you, right? And then again, you always give full liberty to that partner to take decisions on your behalf, because you never developed the ability of taking decisions. You always lived in a very protective environment. Second is, if you have lived in a balanced liberal environment, then you would always want a lot of liberty from your partner, extreme liberty from your partner, like the kind of upbringing that you've had right now, where your parents let you do whatever you want to, then you would want similar things like that, right? So your upbringing would really matter how you are with your partner. Secondly, when it comes to attachments, attachments again can vary. Like, sometimes children are very attached to their parents, and vice versa. So now there is a new concept with parents. This is called separation anxiety. A lot of parents, especially mothers, now that children are going outside the country, in India it's common, in the West also it's common, wherein just the absence of the child in your life creates a vacuum in you. You feel like there's a cavity, and you don't know how to kind of handle the whole thing, because your entire life you dedicated towards your child. What your child wanted, you were cooking as per his or her needs, the clothes, which class they will join, what they want to become. And suddenly when they're not there, you don't know what to do, because your life was only around your child. So there's a lot of separation anxiety that takes place, especially among mothers and also fathers. But with mothers it's a little more, because in India you do have a concept of homemakers, where they are only focused on their children. So in such situations, mothers can face a lot of issues, wherein they need to kind of start life all over again, and start making themselves important. And that can be a little difficult, because that they have to start somewhere in their 40s or maybe late 30s. So it can get a little difficult. So yeah, I mean, see, I though child psychology is a little focuses a lot on attachment styles, but I feel that maybe once when you become an adult, and what kind of an exposure you've had also impacts your relationship. So it's not always to do with your parents. Sometimes your own personal relationships that you've had with your friends, and your teachers, they also impact your relationship. If you've always had very understanding friends, for you to develop a bond with people would never be difficult. If you've had very possessive friends, you'll always be very possessive in a relationship. Or if you had dominating friends, then you would also kind of dominate the partner that you have. Or maybe if you've always been the center of attraction in your own house, or even among friends, and you look something like that even in your partner. You'd always want everything to be about you and not about your partner. So yeah, that can impact.
It's a great way to put it all together. Any last message for our young people? My audience is 18 to 24 mainly. So any last message for them?
So I think just few things that I want to tell this age group of 18 to 24 is it's an age to experience, to experiment, and to explore. So keep
Mhm.
these three E's in mind, okay? So it's an age to experience, experiment, and explore. Do that, right? Because the more you confine yourself into few sets, comfort zones, you won't be able to grow. And this is an age where you are going to make mistakes. This is an age you are going to fall in love, fall out of love. I already have Harsh who is so sleepy, so let me wind it up.
No.
Yeah. So, so go out there, experience everything. Don't fear too many things because the more you're going to fear, the bigger it's going to get. Experience it and then judge whether it was good or bad for you. Don't fall in for what others have told you. Yeah, that doesn't mean go and do things which are life threatening or dangerous, but do experiment things which are within your limit, and then and only then develop a thought. Because your age is a very impressionable age. You do get influenced, you do end up believing what the world wants you to believe, but
Exactly.
that may not be the right way. So
Hmm.
have your own share of experiences, have your own judgments or thoughts or beliefs. And one is, fall in love not because it's something that's pleasurable, but it's something that's going to contribute towards a better you. Remember, the relationship is very important because it teaches you responsibility, it teaches you how to focus energy outside you. The more inner focused you are, the more mental health issues you will have. And this is why in anxiety we say every time you're anxious, don't let the focus be inward. Do it, make it outward. That's why we tell you to get into action, have a glass of water, because it's going to distract you. So relationships are a must, but it should not be for pleasure, but more for a better version of yourself. Yeah, so go out there, experience, explore, and experiment, and you are going to become a better version of yourself. Yeah, but keep that in mind. You have what you are today, you got to become better a year later. You shouldn't remain the same. This
Exactly.
change is necessary.
Yes, that's what I believe in. And with the three E's, I'm definitely that. I'm hopeful that the audience will implement those three E's that you mentioned. So thank you for being on today's episode. You gave us a lot of things to think about and a lot of things to implement, especially from the parenting side and the relationship side. And so thank you. I really appreciate you coming on here and helping
Thank you
young
so
minds
much.
think. I'll
So
definitely,
thank you, Harsh,
yeah.
for calling me. Just one line of thanks I want to say. Also because I've had done multiple podcasts, but very rarely do you have somebody you want to go talk about. So I'm like a little upset that, oh my god, the podcast is coming to an end.
I'm
So
sorry,
it's
but
one of those podcasts. No, no, that's absolutely fine. We've really gone overboard with time, but it's one of those podcasts I really wanted to talk a little more because you were asking me such mature, such sensible questions, that I wanted to share a lot more. So thank you so much. Great talking to you. Very evolved as a human being you are, and
thank you.
I only wish you luck ahead.
Yeah, so don't be sad because I am unemployed right now, and so I have open slots for future episodes. So I I don't
Yeah.
mind I don't mind having you on the next episode because I just love doing podcasting. It's my hobby, and so I'm just gonna keep going until whenever. Definitely, we can have you on again, and we can talk. We can squeeze more knowledge out of you. Definitely. Bye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in
Bye.
today's episode.